She's a former Miss Universe. She's the global ambassador for investment and tourism in Namibia. So, Michelle, we're really excited to hear you talk about preserving wildlife in Africa today. Thanks for joining.
Well, thank you so much to my esteemed panel and for being invited on this platform. As you heard, I'm a former Miss Universe, and it just seems very cliche. Oh, I'm going to save the planet. I'm going to look after the people. Well, I tried to do that for the last 30 years. So just a little bit of background. Namibia is on the west coast of Africa, just above South Africa. We have 2.5 million people in a country that Switzerland could fit into 22 times and California maybe 2.5 times. So it is a really vast piece of land, obviously representing my country as a former Miss Universe. People think, oh, beauty queens just go around the world and glamour and, you know, like tiaras and whatever. But for the last 30 years, I've been able to raise about $40 million for my foundation, the McLean Children Trust, which gives back to education and the future of our country. And we did many projects in conservation, and that's what we're talking about today. So now in my later years, I represent, as you hear, the Eco Channel in Miami as a sales and marketing representative, but I'm also the ambassador for Namibia for tourism and investment, and for the Althyver and List Group in Namibia, which is a private group, a very large company that does diverse businesses from leisure group investment, but now they're also diverging into the green hydrogen. And now Namibia has got our government, I'm working for NIPDB, which is the Namibian Investment Promotions Development Board. And we are promoting the fact that Namibia is the best place to invest in a green hydrogen project. Why? We have the best solar and the best wind in the world. How does that fit into wildlife and conservation? Well, it brings jobs into the country. It's important for our country that we are seen as a leader in something. We are so unknown, and I can very proudly say that, you know, since I've been an ambassador for Namibia, 1992, Namibia has conservation in their constitution, and very few countries in the world have that. In fact, probably only 2 countries in the world. And it's really, really important to us because every investment, everything we do in tourism always goes back to the communities, always goes back into conservation. I'm sure my esteemed panelists will agree with me. There's always this big talk about Africa being, oh, it's a place where, you know, there's famine and disaster and war. And no, there are actually many wonderful, great things about Africa. It's not just about that. That's just propaganda about Africa. So we need to highlight that. We need to invite more investment into our countries, be it Southern Africa, Namibia specifically, that I focus on. But because that really enhances the upliftment of the communities in our country and our investment value. Now, Namibia is one of the safest countries, not only in Africa, but in the world. So I said 2.5 million people, but our country probably has the largest reserves, nature reserves, conservations in the world. So almost 2.5, 2/3 of our country is conservation orientated. So you can still invest. We've got mining opportunities. I mean, we've got the best diamonds in the world. We have the highest quality diamonds in the world. So we've got great opportunities for our country. We've got this De Beers contract with our government, so 50-50. We've got fishing opportunities in Namibia, but one of the things that Namibia lacks is getting the people here, because very few people know about where Namibia is. Everyone knows about South Africa, they know about Botswana. So I think conservation-wise, though, I can go into detail about our rhino projects. We have the second largest rhino breeding sanctuary in the world, besides in South Africa. And I'm sure my esteemed panelists will know about that as well. And it's just, we need to highlight where Namibia is so that people can engage. And what I love about Americans, especially, and I live in Miami now, but I'm between Miami and Namibia, is that Americans are the biggest philanthropists that I know around the world. They just really want to invest. They really want to give back. And so if we can create the wonderful experiences that you can have in Namibia and give back to the communities and solve the conflict between communities and wildlife, that's exactly what, I'd like to, talk about, and try and encourage people to come and visit us. But the green hydrogen project is really, really interesting because even though, we know in the world today now gas and oil is going up, where are we going to turn to? Coal, gas, oil, or can we look at the renewable energy solutions? And it's not just about investing into maybe Namibia or into any other country and looking after climate and looking after our ecology, but it actually is investing in the people in those countries, because you're creating jobs, you're creating sustainability. And that is really what this is about. Thank you guys. The Wall Street Green Summit is just, one of these platforms that we need to have. We need to have this conversation because more people need to be, and I think the planet is very conscious and is very aware. And at my youth, when I speak to my son, he's 22, he's an engineer, when I look at the youth that I deal with every day in terms of the Michelle McLean Children Trust and all the work that we do, they are very conscious about our planet and what we need to do. But on a bigger scale with business, we need to promote this even more. So I'm just really excited about this, platform and opportunity because we need to get this message out there. Yeah, so, green hydrogen in Namibia is the big talking point. The government is really behind the fact that we need to promote this for employment, for investment in the country. It's, it's important that every country has suffered since we've had COVID. So not only the wildlife community conflict because of COVID, we've had a total lack of resources in terms of, poaching has happened. We've had problems with communities being able to have a livelihood. And so we have to get out of COVID now. We have to really look at how we're going to help these various communities around the world in various countries, look after the balance between the wildlife and the communities and conservation, which is very important. Tourism will not happen, especially in Africa, if you've been to Africa, unless you look after the wildlife. What are the tourists going to come and look at? Namibia, fortunately, has a diversity of the oldest living desert in the world, and we've got the Delta region, we've got the second largest canyon in the world. Sorry for you, Nevada. But, it's one of those incredible countries that you have that diverse experience, but without the visitors and the tourists and the investment in our country, we're not going to be able to survive. So we need to get out there with that message. And I think this platform is very important in the sense that we just start communicating about the different needs around the world. South America might have different needs to Africa. I know many people around the world in different organizations in conservation, Costa Rica being one of them. And they're also one of the leading countries in the world and also have conservation in their constitution. So for me, that's really important. But what is really exciting is green hydrogen and the fact that Namibia has immense amount of sunlight, immense amount of wind. So, we can attract that kind of investment. So Althaven List is starting their new pilot project with CMB Tech from Belgium. and they're investing almost 40 billion Namibian dollars into this project, which will, give lots of opportunities for business, as well as look at our conservation in our country, whether it's environment or whether it's, wildlife, and that's important. The investment is so, so important. So all I can say is reach out to everybody out there and come and visit Namibia as soon as possible.
I would love to get on a plane today, if possible. Thank you for that. Wanted to open up questions to everyone. Feel free to put questions into the chat and I can pass them along to all of our panelists. But start with, I've been lucky enough to travel around Africa several times, have not been to Namibia. I'm curious of two things. One, the government involvement in creating these contracts, and two, can you speak to the infrastructure in Namibia and how does that play into the development of green hydrogen? Do you have a future vision of being able to support Namibia energy needs through solar and wind, for example?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question. We are growing that infrastructure, but we already have an incredible infrastructure due to our colonialized days. So we were previously a German colony, and then we were an annexed territory of South Africa. We have incredible roads, railroads, and also the energy grid. So renewable energy for us is going to be very easy to plug into the grid. But also, if you are talking about the government, their biggest project right now is green hydrogen. And we're going to launch that in Davos, 26th of May. The country has got its 7 components to this whole operation. So you've got your major sponsors, but then you also have your solar components, your wind energy, and your electrolysis components of that kind of business in green hydrogen, as well as your ammonium. And it is easily transported. So when we have, say, CMB Tech from Belgium, who's partnering with us on a Althaven List project, they can easily take that energy back to Europe. So the government is looking at making sure everything's infrastructurally in place, but we want to grow that, and we can grow that with more investment opportunities. So that's very exciting for us. This is a $10 billion US project for us, which should be unrolled. We're going to start now in 2024, and then by 2025, we're going to actually be able to realize this project, which is very, it's just an intense project right now. But I think Namibia is going to be on the map in the world for the first huge green hydrogen project.
How have you found your outreach so far in the US? I mean, I can understand because of your longstanding relationship with various European countries in the Netherlands, but what's the best way for us to spread the message here in the US?
Well, I think because we have one of the largest natural ports in the world in Walvis Bay in Namibia, we have the AGOA agreement, which is the agreement between certain African countries and America. Import-export is really desirable. And this is what we need to do, is create more activities in investment and manufacturing in Namibia, to be able to really solidify that relationship between America and Namibia, which we have one of the ports. Many of the other countries are landlocked, like Botswana, Zimbabwe, and Zambia. So we can create ourselves to be a hub. And so America can look to us. And in fact, the American embassy is building one of the biggest embassies in Africa right here in Windhoek in Namibia. So there you go. I think, that's kind of a sealed deal.
That's fascinating. I did not realize that. And I think it was today in the Times, there in the New York Times, there was an article about a COVID and the effects in Africa, surprisingly not as bad as we expected it to be. So, the hope for that is that tourism then will come back, and that increases your revenue dollars as well. Are you seeing an uptick so far?
Not right now, but I think it's going to start progressing. I think there's a little bit of, because the hype we're creating at COP26 with the green hydrogen and Namibia being a little bit more, as a front runner country instead of Botswana or South Africa always taking the wind out of our sails. And now we're going to go to the World Economic Forum, as I mentioned. So I'll be representing the government on the green hydrogen project, as well as Altar and List group in Namibia with their pilot plant project. That's really going to put us on the map. And yeah, I see that as positive. But as we all know in this world, marketing is everything, but you've also got to deliver. And so we've made very sure, and my colleagues like James, who's the economic advisor to the president on the green hydrogen, you don't overpromise and deliver. We really do have to focus on doing the right thing at the right time. So, but just getting our name out there in Namibia, instead of being called Namibia or, anything else, would be good. And that's my job as a marketing person, as a spokesperson. So, but I'm excited. I'm excited about the future.
That's fantastic, and definitely a step in the right direction. I know it's on my list. So one last call to our participant, our audience members, to if there are any questions. Otherwise, we will thank you very much for joining us today. Oh, we just had a question come in. Is the Namibian green hydrogen being funded primarily through government or private capital?
Very interesting. No, international capital, but supported by the government, land-wise and everything. So yeah, international funding.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But obviously with strong government support and partnership there. So it's more of a public-private effort.
Yes. The green hydrogen project with the government is definitely being backed and funded partly by the government and with international investors. But Altar and List Group is doing a green hydrogen project pilot plant with CMB Tech from Belgium that is purely investor value. But what Namibia really does enjoy is the fact that we bring all these investors in from overseas that will be able to really lift the economy in our country right now. So we're trying to not have too many government public investments. We would love more international investment.
Private capital, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Michelle. Hope we get to visit you over there one of these days.
I have a safari company, so I've got you guys on my radar. Hope
Great.
you come and visit soon.
Great. Thank you so much.